everyone. It's truly wonderful to see so many bright, hopeful faces gathered here today. I want to start by asking you all a question. Have you ever wondered what it truly means to live a meaningful life? Not just any life, but one that leaves a legacy, touches hearts, and brings you true fulfillment? If you have, you're not alone. Today, I want to share with you a story from the Bible, a story that might seem simple, but carries a lesson that can change your perspective and maybe even your life. Let's travel back in time to the days when Jesus walked the earth. Picture a dusty road, the sun beating down, and two men whose lives could not be more different. One is a rich man, dressed in fine linen and purple robes, colors only the wealthiest could afford. Every day, he lives in luxury, feasting and celebrating, surrounded by friends. Not far from his grand gate, however, is another man, a beggar named Lazarus. Lazarus is sick, hungry, and covered in sores. He lies at the rich man's gate, hoping for scraps from the table. The dogs, the lowest creatures in society, are his only companions, licking his wounds. Let me pause and ask you, who do you identify with? The rich man with all his comforts, or Lazarus who has little but hope? This story isn't just about wealth and poverty. It's about how we see ourselves, how we see others, and most importantly, how we see what really matters in life. It's about positive thinking, kindness, and the choices we make every single day. Now let's dig deeper. In Luke 16:19 through 31, Jesus tells this parable to his followers. It's more than a story, it's a mirror. It challenges us to reflect on our lives, our attitudes, and our actions. The rich man had everything, but he was blind to the needs of Lazarus right outside his door. He was so focused on his own comfort that he missed the opportunity to make a difference. Lazarus, despite his suffering, kept hoping, kept believing, and, most importantly, never lost faith. Why did Jesus tell this story? Was it to make us feel guilty about what we have, or to scare us with what might happen if we don't help others? I don't think so. I believe Jesus wanted us to see that real wealth isn't measured by what's in our pockets, but by what's in our hearts. Let's be honest. How many times have we walked past someone in need? Maybe it was a friend who seemed down, a stranger on the street, or even a family member struggling in silence. It's easy to get caught up in our own lives, our own goals, our own worries. But the story of the rich man and Lazarus reminds us it's what we do for others that truly counts. In Matthew 25:40, Jesus says, "Truly I tell you, whatever you did for one of the least of these brothers and sisters of mine, you did for me." That's powerful. It means every act of kindness, every encouraging word, every moment spent helping someone else is a moment spent serving God Himself. But here's where positive thinking comes in. The world tells us that happiness comes from having more money, more followers, more likes. But the Bible teaches us that real joy comes from giving, from loving, from believing that we can make a difference. Romans 12:2 reminds us, "Do not conform to the pattern of this world, but be transformed by the renewing of your mind." So how do we renew our minds? How do we become people who see Lazarus at the gate, not just the comforts inside? It starts with gratitude. When we are thankful for what we have, we begin to see others not as competitors, but as fellow travelers on the journey of life. We stop asking, "What can I get?" and start asking, "What can I give?" Let me share a story from my own life. Not long ago, I met a young man who seemed to have it all. Good grades, a supportive family, lots of friends. But he told me he often felt empty, like something was missing. One day, he volunteered at a local shelter, serving meals to people who had nothing. He said it changed his life. I realized, he told me, that the happiest I ever felt was when I was helping someone else. It made my own problems seem so much smaller. That's the heart of positive thinking. It's not just about believing in yourself or looking on the bright side. It's about seeing the good in others, believing that you can make a difference, and knowing that even the smallest act of kindness can change someone's world. Let's go back to Lazarus for a moment. He had nothing. No home, no food, no friends except for a few dogs. But he had hope. He believed that things could get better. He didn't let his circumstances define him. And in the end, according to the story, he was comforted, while the rich man who had ignored him was left wishing he had done things differently. So, what does this mean for us? It means that every day is a chance to choose. We can choose to be like the rich man, focusing only on ourselves, our comfort, our desires. Or we can choose to be like Lazarus, holding on to hope, trusting in God, and believing in the goodness of others. Even better, we can choose to be the person who opens the gate, who sees the Lazaruses in our lives, and who reaches out with love. That's not always easy. Sometimes being kind means going out of your way. Sometimes it means giving up something you want so someone else can have what they need. But every time you do, you're planting seeds, seeds of hope, seeds of faith, seeds of love. Galatians 6:9 tells us, "Let us not become weary in doing good, for at the proper time we will reap a harvest if we do not give up." I want you to think for a moment about your own life. Who is at your gate? Maybe it's a classmate who sits alone at lunch. Maybe it's a sibling who feels left out. Maybe it's someone you haven't even met yet, but who needs a friend, a smile, or a helping hand. What if you made the choice today to reach out? What if you decided to be the difference? I know sometimes it feels like our small actions can't possibly change the world. But remember, change doesn't always come in big dramatic moments. Sometimes it's in the quiet, everyday choices we make. Proverbs 11:25 says, "A generous person will prosper. Whoever refreshes others will be refreshed." When you lift someone up, you lift yourself up too. As youth, you have so much energy, so much creativity, so much potential. Don't let anyone tell you that you're too young to make a difference. 1 Timothy 4:12 encourages us, "Don't let anyone look down on you because you are young, but set an example for the believers in speech, in conduct, in love, in faith, and in purity." You have the power to set the tone, to lead by example, to inspire others with your kindness, your hope, your faith. Let's be a generation that chooses positive thinking, not just for ourselves, but for the world around us. Let's look for the Lazaruses at our gates, and let's open our hearts and hands. Let's believe that every act of love, no matter how small, matters, because it does. As I wrap up, I want to leave you with one final thought. At the end of the story, the rich man asks if Lazarus can go back and warn his family so they don't make the same mistakes. But the answer is clear. We already have everything we need to make the right choices. We have the stories, we have the teachings, we have each other. It's up to us to act. So tonight, as you go home, ask yourself, who can I help? How can I make a difference? What kind of legacy do I want to leave? Let's choose hope. Let's choose kindness. Let's choose to see the Lazaruses at our gates and to love them as Jesus loves us. Because when we do, we don't just change their lives, we change our own. Thank you, and may God bless you all as you go out and make the world a brighter, kinder place. Ladies and gentlemen, esteemed colleagues and friends, thank you for gathering here today. I stand before you not just as a speaker, but as a fellow traveler on this journey we call life. Today, I want to talk to you about something that transcends our professions, our titles, and even our ambitions. It's a topic that touches the heart of human existence, where we place our hope and how we measure our true wealth. I'd like to begin with a story of a man who, by all accounts, had it all. He was a successful entrepreneur, respected in his field, surrounded by luxury and comfort. Yet one evening, as he sat alone in his lavish home, he realized that despite his earthly treasures, he felt empty. His wealth had bought him many things, but not the peace, purpose, or fulfillment he truly craved. Have you ever looked around at all you've accomplished and wondered, is this all there is? In Matthew 6:19-21, Jesus says, "Do not lay up for yourselves treasures on earth, where moth and rust destroy and where thieves break in and steal. But lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven, for where your treasure is, there your heart will be also." Let's pause and think about that. Where is your treasure? In your accolades, your bank account, your achievements? Or is it somewhere deeper, somewhere eternal? We live in a world that measures success in material terms. We are told to seek more, earn more, accumulate more. But the Bible challenges us to look beyond the visible, toward the invisible. It reminds us that earthly treasures are temporary, fleeting, and fragile. They can be taken away in an instant. A market crash, a natural disaster, a personal loss, and suddenly what seemed so secure vanishes. But Jesus offers us something better. He offers us hope, not in possessions, but in Himself. He invites us to place our trust, our value, our future, not in what we have, but in who He is. Put your hope in Jesus. What does that mean for us as professionals, as leaders, as people striving for excellence? First, it means redefining success. True success is not measured by what we own, but by who we become. In Proverbs 23:4-5, we are warned, "Do not weary yourself to gain wealth. Cease from your consideration of it. When you set your eyes on it, it is gone. For wealth certainly makes itself wings like an eagle that flies toward the heavens." Let me ask you, how much time, energy, and passion do you pour into your work, your career, your ambitions? What if you invested that same intensity into your faith, your relationships, your acts of kindness, your eternal legacy? I am reminded of another story, one closer to home. A friend of mine, a brilliant lawyer, spent years climbing the professional ladder. She worked late nights, sacrificed weekends, and rarely saw her family. She was rewarded with promotions, bonuses, and recognition. Yet, in a quiet moment of reflection, she realized her soul was starving. She had neglected the things that truly mattered: her faith, her loved ones, her character. It was then that she decided to shift her focus, to lay up treasures in heaven, and to put her hope in Jesus. Her life changed, not because she stopped working hard, but because she started living with a higher purpose. Let's bring this closer to our reality as professional associations. We are driven, ambitious, and results-oriented. These are not bad qualities. They can be powerful tools for good, but they become dangerous when they overshadow our deeper calling. Paul writes in 1 Timothy 6:17, "Command those who are rich in this present world not to be arrogant, nor to put their hope in wealth, which is so uncertain, but to put their hope in God, who richly provides us with everything for our enjoyment." Do we put our hope in our resumes, our portfolios, our reputations, or do we put our hope in the one who holds our future? Perhaps you ask, but if I don't strive for earthly success, won't I fall behind? Won't I lose my edge? It's a fair question, but the answer lies not in abandoning our ambitions, but in aligning them with God's purpose. Colossians 3:23 reminds us, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters." When we work for a higher purpose, our efforts are not in vain. We build not just careers, but character. Not just fortunes, but faith. Let me give you a practical example. In my early career, I chased every promotion, every accolade. I thought recognition would fill the longing inside me, but each achievement felt hollow. It was only when I began to serve others, mentoring young professionals, volunteering in my community, giving without expectation, that I discovered a deeper joy. I realized that the most lasting treasures are those we store up in heaven: kindness, generosity, love, and faithfulness. I want you to imagine for a moment that all your earthly accomplishments were stripped away. Who would you be? What would remain? Would your legacy be defined by what you had, or by who you helped, how you loved, and the hope you inspired? Jesus teaches us in Matthew 16:26, "For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul?" That is a sobering question. It calls us to examine our priorities, our motives, our direction. Some of you may be thinking, "But I have responsibilities. I have mouths to feed, bills to pay, goals to achieve." Of course you do. So did the people Jesus spoke to. He never condemned honest work or wise stewardship. What he warned against was making earthly treasure our ultimate aim. Let me challenge you. What if, starting today, you shifted your focus from accumulating to appreciating, from getting to giving, from striving to surrendering? What if you put your hope in Jesus and let him direct your path? The world tells us that more is better, that bigger is best, that success is measured by what we can hold in our hands. But the Bible invites us to a different kind of success, a success rooted in trust, in hope, in eternal perspective. Consider the words of Psalm 39:6-7. "Surely everyone goes around like a mere phantom. In vain they rush about, heaping up wealth without knowing whose it will finally be. But now, Lord, what do I look for? My hope is in you." Our hope is not in the stock market, the next deal, or the next promotion. Our hope is in Jesus, the one who never fails, never fades, never disappears. He is the same yesterday, today, and forever. As members of professional associations, we have influence. We set examples. We shape cultures. Imagine the impact we could have if we led not just with our skills, but with our hearts. If we measured success not just by what we built, but by how we built it, with integrity, compassion, and faith. I urge you, lay up for yourselves treasures in heaven. Invest in relationships. Cultivate gratitude. Practice generosity. Seek justice. Love mercy. Walk humbly with your God. Some of you may be at a crossroads, wondering if all your striving has been worth it. Let me encourage you. It's never too late to change course. It's never too late to store up the kind of treasure that lasts. It's never too late to put your hope in Jesus. In closing, let me leave you with these words from Hebrews 13:5. Keep your lives free from the love of money and be content with what you have, because God has said, "Never will I leave you, never will I forsake you." True security is not found in what we own, but in who owns us. When we put our hope in Jesus, we find a peace that surpasses understanding, a joy that cannot be shaken, and a treasure that will never fade. So, as you leave here today and return to your professions, your families, your ambitions, I challenge you, don't lay up earthly treasures that fade. Put your hope in Jesus, the only treasure that lasts forever. Thank you, and may God bless you all. Let me ask you a question. Have you ever felt like you were chasing success, happiness, or peace, but somehow, no matter how hard you ran, you always seemed to be running in circles? Like a hamster on a wheel, working hard, achieving goals, but still feeling that something was missing. I know I have. And I know many of you, professional men and women, leaders, achievers, have probably felt the same at some point in your journey. Today, I want to talk to you about a different kind of journey. A journey that doesn't just fill your resume, your bank account, or your schedule, but fills your heart and gives true meaning to your life. My topic is simple but powerful. Follow Jesus so you don't lose your life. Now, you might be thinking that's a bold statement, and you'd be right. But let's take a closer look at what it means, why it matters, and how it can change not just your life, but the lives of everyone around you. Introduction: the search for purpose. We live in a world that values achievement. In professional associations like this, we celebrate progress, innovation, and success. We push ourselves to be the best, and there is nothing wrong with striving for excellence. In fact, it's good. But in the midst of all this striving, it's easy to lose sight of what really matters. Have you ever asked yourself, what am I really living for? It's a question that echoes through history. Men and women have built empires, advanced science, and shaped societies, yet many ended up feeling empty inside. Why? Because they were missing the one thing that gives life true meaning: following Jesus. Body. The call of Jesus. Let's look at what Jesus himself said. In Matthew 16:24 through 26, Jesus told his disciples, "Whoever wants to be my disciple must deny themselves and take up their cross and follow me. For whoever wants to save their life will lose it, but whoever loses their life for me will find it." What good will it be for someone to gain the whole world yet forfeit their soul? Or what can anyone give in exchange for their soul? Think about that. We can gain the world, career success, money, fame, But if we lose our soul in the process, what have we really gained? Jesus isn't saying that success is bad. He's saying that success without him is empty. Let me share a story. There was a man who had everything: wealth, status, influence. But at the end of his life, he confessed, "I climbed the ladder of success only to find it was leaning against the wrong wall." Maybe you know someone like that. Maybe at times you have felt that way. Jesus calls us to something higher. He calls us to follow him, not just on Sundays, not just in our spare time, but every day, in every part of our lives. He invites us into a relationship that transforms us from the inside out. Positive thinking through Jesus. Now, I know that positive thinking is a popular theme. We hear about the power of mindset, the importance of optimism, and the benefits of gratitude. And these are all good things. But here's the secret. The greatest positive thinking doesn't come from trying to convince yourself that everything will be okay. It comes from knowing that you are loved, valued, and guided by Jesus. Philippians 4:13 says, "I can do all things through Christ who strengthens me." That's not just a motivational quote. That's a promise. When we follow Jesus, we don't face challenges alone. We have his strength, his wisdom, and his love to carry us through. In John 10:10, Jesus says, "I have come that they may have life and have it to the full." Fullness of life isn't about having more stuff. It's about having more of him. It's about living with purpose, peace, and joy, no matter what circumstances we face. Practical ways to follow Jesus in professional life. You might be wondering, how can I follow Jesus in my professional life? It's a great question. Following Jesus isn't just about what we believe, it's about how we live. Here are a few simple, practical ways. 1. Integrity. In Proverbs 10:9, we read, "Whoever walks in integrity walks securely, but whoever takes crooked paths will be found out." In business and leadership, in every decision, choose to do what is right even when it's hard. 2. Service. Jesus said in Mark 10:45, "For even the Son of Man did not come to be served, but to serve." Look for ways to serve others, your colleagues, your clients, your community. True greatness comes from lifting others up. 3. Compassion. Colossians 3:12 says, "Clothe yourselves with compassion, kindness, humility, gentleness, and patience." Treat everyone with respect and kindness, even those who disagree with you or challenge you. 4. Excellence with humility. Colossians 3:23 encourages us, "Whatever you do, work at it with all your heart, as working for the Lord, not for human masters." Strive for excellence, not just for recognition, but as an act of worship. 5. Hope. In Romans 15:13, Paul writes, "May the God of hope fill you with all joy and peace as you trust in him, so that you may overflow with hope by the power of the Holy Spirit." When we follow Jesus, we bring hope to our workplaces, especially in difficult times. The cost and reward of following Jesus. Let's be honest. Following Jesus is not always easy. It may mean making tough choices. It may mean standing alone. But it also means never walking alone. Jesus walks with us, guides us, and gives us strength. In Matthew 7:13 through 14, Jesus speaks about the narrow gate. Enter through the narrow gate, for wide is the gate and broad is the road that leads to destruction, and many enter through it. But small is the gate and narrow the road that leads to life, and only a few find it. The world tells us to follow the crowd, to do what everyone else is doing. But Jesus calls us to a different path, a path that leads to real life, lasting joy, and eternal hope. Why it's good to follow Jesus? Let me make it plain. It's good to follow Jesus. Not because it's easy, but because it's worth it. In John 14:6, Jesus says, "I am the way and the truth and the life. No one comes to the Father except through me." When you follow Jesus, you discover who you really are. Not just a professional, not just a title, but a beloved child of God. You find a purpose bigger than yourself. You experience a peace that the world cannot give. You live each day with hope, even in the face of challenges. And here's the best part. When you follow Jesus, you don't lose your life. You find it. You find the life you were always meant to live, a life filled with meaning, love, and joy. A personal challenge, an invitation. So I want to challenge you today. Don't settle for a life of empty achievement. Don't lose yourself chasing after things that don't last. Choose to follow Jesus. Let Him lead you. Let Him fill your life with His love and purpose. Maybe you're here today and you've never made that decision. Or maybe you've been following Jesus, but you've gotten distracted by the busyness of life. Today is a new day. Today is a chance to say, "Jesus, I want to follow you. I want you to lead my life." Let's not wait for a crisis to realize what matters most. Let's make the choice now while we have the chance to follow Jesus so we don't lose our lives but truly find them. Conclusion: the life that lasts. As I close, I want to leave you with this thought. Everything else will fade away. Success, money, titles, they're all temporary. But the life you live in Jesus, the relationships you build, the love you share, the hope you carry, these things last forever. In 2 Corinthians 4:18, Paul reminds us, "So we fix our eyes not on what is seen, but on what is unseen, since what is seen is temporary, but what is unseen is eternal." Let's choose the life that lasts. Let's follow Jesus. Let's encourage each other along the way. Let's be people of hope, of integrity, of compassion. Let's live lives that matter, not just for now, but for eternity. Thank you, and may God bless you as you follow Him. From the table of Echo of Christ, we love you.